Hi, this is Frank Burke from Dynasoar Rocketry, and I wanted to go through a quick tutorial of how to put the sticker shock markings on one of my kits. This is the orbital transporter, but the techniques are the same. It's not complicated. So his decals come on a backing paper, and then there's a clear, there's sort of a translucent backing paper. And so what you're going to do is you're going to peel on these the transfer paper, and it's going to peel off of the backing paper. And so on areas where you have little letters, you may need to kind of press and peel the backing off carefully so that the letters actually come with the transfer material when you're going to put it on, because sometimes they'll want to stick to the backing a little bit depending how they're cut. So you just need to look at that while you're taking them off. So the main thing with his decals are on this transfer paper, you're going to put it down, and then I'll show you. You're going to take a corner and you're going to peel that transfer paper. You're going to roll it while you're pushing down with your thumb. You're not going to pull it straight up, because if you pull it straight up, it's going to pull off of the foam, and especially on a painted model, it could just pull the paint up off of the model, especially on these Depron wings, which it's very hard to get paint to adhere really well when you're trying to put something sticky and then pull off. It'll typically just pull that off. So I've gotten all my decals here, and I've cut around them with about a 1/16 of an inch outline on each one. So I have them all individually cut out so that I have them ready to go. I'll lay it out here. Got my N number. These guys, we have the little red boxes. These guys, we've got one spare one I'm going to keep for a side door. And these big doors here. And we've got the cockpit decal. And these little back stripes here. And it came with these little black stripes. I forgot what I included these for. They're just little extra details if you want to put them on somewhere. I'm not going to put them on my model. Anyway, the little end number is a big end number. So we've got the little end numbers. Those are going to go above the fuselage stripes. Got the cockpit decal. We've got these three rectangles, which are going to go on the rear of the model on both sides. We've got the red stripes and the black stripes, which also go on either side of those on the rear of the model. We've got the orbital transport line decal, which is going to go above the fuselage stripes. We've got the N number that are big for the tail, and then we've got the tail stripes, and we've got two doors, and I'm going to use this spare little red square for a door up on the nose because I think that's kind of nice. Now for the nose, I've kind of eyeballed already, and I've used the mold line for the door, or sorry, for the nose cone, to act as my center line, so I can kind of see that when I'm putting the cockpit decal on. Otherwise you probably want to mark the cockpit decal so that it's sort of centered. So I'm going to start with the cockpit decal. So you see that it started to go with it, so I made sure that it's all come off onto the transfer paper. And then I'm just going to eyeball this and make sure that the little split here on the decal is right along the seam line, and these two edges are more or less parallel with that. And then once that's good, I'm just going to push down really hard with my thumb and rub it. Now you see I'm peeling it back, and I'm pushing down on the decal while I peel with my finger, and looks really nice. I'll eyeball this in the front, and that's lined up with the tail, so that's perfect. That's done. Now I'm going to take this little extra red rectangle that we had. And I'm going to put that on the side of the cockpit. Lined up so it's parallel with the end of the body tube. And then again, I'm just going to peel out, and that's especially important with these because these are just a very thin little cutout. Mark does a very nice job on these, and they're very small, so you have to be careful when you roll them that you don't just roll up the little red thing and bundle it all up. Now, one little extra thing I'm going to do on here, which is not necessary, but because I'm a little nerdy, I just took that spare piece of black stripe that came with the kit. I'm just going to cut about a little 1/8 of an inch piece, or about a less than 1/8 of an inch wide of that piece. And I'm just going to put that on this little door so it looks like it has a door handle. Totally unnecessary. You don't even need to put this door up here on there. See, there, you got a door handle. Free, easy. Okay, so moving on. Next thing I'm going to do the body stripe. So, now when I do these decals, I usually don't measure. I just do it by eye, and it looks really good, and nobody's the wiser. You can certainly, you know, take a ruler and a tape measure and a pencil and make little tick marks if you want to really get things perfectly in line. Now this, again, it's up to you. There's no right or wrong on these. I'm just gonna put this so that the little piece that goes up high right here is right about even with the front of the wing. And all I'm trying to do is just kind of get it centered so that the spare gap here in the tail is sort of even. You could move it a little more forward if you wanted. I might do that. If you do that, if you don't press down really hard, it looks like I pressed down a little bit too hard, and it's sticking to it, and I'm okay with the way it is. So now let's see if I can. If you just peel slowly, if you don't push it down real hard, it doesn't stick really hard to the fuselage, and when you pull off, it's not going to pull any of the cardboard with it. You just don't want to push down super hard until you're happy with it. So I'm going to move it forward just maybe about here. I think that looks a little better. It's a little more forward. Okay, now I'm just going to push down really hard while I do it, making sure not to wrinkle the decal. Now when we get done with these decals, especially on the foam, I'm going to take a hot hairdryer. I won't show that on this, but I'm going to take a hot hairdryer and I'm going to get the decal fairly warm, and then I'm going to roll it back with my finger. I'm going to push on the decal with my finger while I move the hairdryer around, and what that does is that softens the decal, and this foam, which has a little bit of texture to it, that decal will just sit right down. It'll look like it's painted on, and it'll adhere much better, and that's especially important if you're doing that over a painted model on the foam. Okay, so I have the body stripe on there. Now the end number, I found sometimes it's nice to have a little X-Acto knife, and I just stick the decal to the X-Acto so that I can hang on to it. I'm going to put that below the front of the fuselage stripe, like so, and then rub that on. Those are usually near the front of the fuselage. Now note, I've put this down so the bottom of this is a little bit below halfway. And the reason I'm doing that is because the rail buttons are on the other side. If you put it up too high, the little orbital transport name will get in the way of the rail button and you might have to cut around it. So. Okay, so now I'm going to take the orbital transport line. So now I'm peeling very slowly and I can kind of feel them release. And so this time it worked really good. And all the lettering came with the decal. Now this is going to fit up just above and behind this little part that sticks up on the fuselage stripe. And I'm going very slow. I'm trying to make sure that I get it nice and straight before I push it down hard. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Just going to push that down. And that looks pretty good. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'll do one of the tail pieces. And these should be cut at the right angle, so if you leave about 1/8 of an inch gap from the front and the bottom and there, it should just line up perfectly with the tail piece. This vinyl also helps give some strength to the foam, since that's a pretty tall unsupported piece of foam. So again, I'm just going to line this up about 1/8 of an inch back, 1/8 of an inch from the front. Put that down, make sure that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to rub this real nice. Okay, now just like we did with the body, I'm going to use my little X-Acto to get the transfer paper. And again, so I'm using my thumb, I'm pushing down hard, and I'm just rolling it while I push down. And that helps prevent the decal from pulling off the foam. And sometimes there's a little surface skin on the foam, and if you were to pull real hard straight out, you might just pull that surface skin off, and then your decal doesn't have any sticky left on it, right? It's like if you put it down on paint. So, see, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to take my end number, the big end number, and stick it to my X-Acto so that I'm not touching it with my fingers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of look here, and I'm going to eyeball that it's in sort of the right place. And even between the top and the bottom. Take a look at it, and that looks pretty close. I'm going to go ahead and push that down. And again, especially with these letters and numbers that are small, the small pieces on them, I'm going to roll the decal off. And that looks pretty good. Okay. Now, I go back here. Before I forget this side, I'm going to take one of the big doors and I think I'm going to put this door right, where am I going to put that? That's good. I'm going to think about that one. I haven't decided yet. Okay, so I'm going to keep going with the rear of the model, so I'm going to take this little red stripe here. And this is going to go on the end of the model, centered, top and bottom, and maybe 1/4 inch in from the end. So I'm just trying to align it with the end of the body tube and keep it kind of straight, and maybe with like a 1/2 inch gap to the top of the fin, sort of roughly centered. These decals just simulate what was on the original orbital transport kit. Okay, then I'm going to get these two little rectangles here. So these are kind of evenly spaced, maybe 1/4 inch in front of this, and just a little bit below the tail. Now I'm not going to push that down very hard. This might be one area where it might pay to measure, but I think I can eyeball this okay. So I'm just going to use that to compare the ends. So that's pretty close. I'm going to take the last one. And again, these are a little more critical. You don't push them down very hard. So I'm pushing down in the middle where the contact paper is, not where the decal is, because the decals are real thin and it's real easy if you have to relocate those, if you push them down hard, to tear those. So I'm going to look at that. Those look pretty good, so I'm going to commit. And just push them down real nice. And then peel my transfer paper off. Okay, those look pretty good. And then I'm going to take one of the black stripes here. And that's gonna be centered about halfway on this large red portion, but the height is going to be similar to this red stripe, so about a 1/2 inch down. So I'm going to say that's probably about there. I think that's okay. And one comment about Sticker Shock, you can always send him an email and he can do custom numbers, he can change colors. He offers this set in green, orange, blue, yellow, red, which is the classic one. You know, he could do these little rectangles in silver if you want. He can change the end number. I had him put the end number 1701 just because I like Star Trek. So I had him do those numbers differently for him. You just need to call and ask him about that. So now I'm going to go back to this forward door and see if I can figure out. I kind of like it with just this single door on the one side. It probably should have another door on the other side or further back, maybe an emergency exit. So I'm going to put this door back here. I was just not wanting to do it on top of the black lettering, so let's say this is a emergency wing exit, and I'm going to take my little, so you can see I'm just doing this on the fly. I'm just doing whatever I think looks good. There's no right or wrong. Okay, so I'm going to take this little black doohickey and push it down and peel it off, and there I've got a door handle, and that finishes half the model, so the other side is just replicating it. If you're worried, you can take measurements on this side and make a little tick mark on the pencil with the other side so that you can reproduce it. And I'm not going to have a red door because I don't have another spare red piece for the other side, but normally up on the cockpit area you've only got one exit door anyway, or one loading door up on the one side of the aircraft. So that does it. I hope you found that interesting. Any of the other kits, the decals go on in a similar way. You can see that he's already put the yellow dots on the red, so you just apply that as one piece. A lot of his decals he'll do that way. I had him do the end numbers separately from these, just so the black was separate from the red pieces, so when he cuts them he doesn't waste as much material, and it makes the decals cheaper for you to buy. So it adds just a slight amount of work for you to put those on, but as you can see it's not complicated. So great, thanks for watching, and happy flying.